My next guest is the amazing Tanya Carne. She proves that persistence really does pay off, as she's had her dance studio for 31 years and has gone on to create a national program called B Street Crew. She's passionate about supporting boys and uplifting them through dance. And in our interview, we explore why she's so passionate about males in the dance space. She's also created an amazing event which she has run for several years called Connect, a festival celebrating and uplifting boys in dance. She not only has the B Street Crew, but launched it during a pandemic, and we're going to talk about what that was really like for Tanya. So buckle up, let's go with the amazing dance enthusiast, Tanya Carne. Hey there, I'm Josephine Lancuba and you're listening to Business, Arts and All That Jazz. I've been immersed in the creative business world and performing arts industry for over 20 years. I know from experience that being an artist, a creative, or running a creative business can be a tough gig, but I'm here to tell you it's possible. I went from having $0 to my name and living below the poverty line, to then living paycheck to paycheck, to finally living a life of comfort, happiness, passion, and even stability. In this podcast, I peel back the curtain and share with you the ups and downs of my journey. Plus, I tap into the minds of creative industry experts to discover their paths to success. I know you have a spark inside of you, that little voice that tells you to reach for the stars. I want to help you step into your limelight, to have the courage to live a life you dream of, a life that you design. So get ready to be entertained and inspired as we talk business, arts, and all that jazz. Hello and welcome, the beautiful Tanya Carne. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you going?
I'm pretty good, thank you, Joe. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and you're in lockdown, right? So
Yes,
how's that?
I've been for a
treating
bazillion years.
you? Yeah.
Feels like, yeah, it's the roller coaster that everybody's talking about, having two businesses and consistently kind of pivoting and adapting, and it takes a lot of creative effort, and it's quite exhausting actually, but
Yes.
challenging and meeting those challenges at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I notice on Facebook, obviously, we're Facebook friends, and I always see you doing these beautiful poses on the beach. Very inspiring. So you must feel lucky to at least have that sort of as your locale. Yeah, you get to.
It's not. I don't.
Not.
I live too far away from the beach. I haven't been able to go to the beach. It's my one thing that really has been it's a stress reliever, but I haven't been able to go to the beach. One of my hobbies is photography of waves and swells and things, and I haven't been able to do that. I've been vicariously watching on Surfline.
Oh.
But all my family live in Queensland, so they live. Mum and dad live on the beach, so yes, that is where I get my my family feel and also my spiritual feel from the beach. But yeah, I haven't been able to get it.
Well, hopefully in a couple of weeks it will be free in Sydney to hopefully get there. So
yeah,
fingers crossed. Look, now I know that I've read a little bit about you, what you've sent through, and you've been running your studio for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
31 years or something crazy like that.
Yep.
How did you start your dance journey? Like, how did it begin for Tanya?
I always loved dance. I've not known a time where I've never loved it, but it's gone on a little evolution. Started when I was 5 because I couldn't start any earlier. My background is in ballet, and I did ballet full time at an elite level, and then realized that I started hating it because I was doing it so much, and it became really way too serious. I thought I wanted to be a ballet dancer, but I didn't. And then I did a year of full-time at Ross Coleman Studio. That was 1984, or 86, and it was like the fame school back then.
Yeah.
Beautiful big studios in the city, and then that closed down just due to, I think, poor financial management. And then I got an agent, and I did a lot of acting work, and traveled with a theatre restaurant show, and loved being in the commercial dance world. And that was kind of but also got lots more acting work.
Yeah.
And I think it was because of my agent was an acting agent anyway. But I loved that. But I realised after a contract was cancelled, and I still had to kind of pay the bills, that I thought, I love dance teaching. I'd done some kind of student dance teaching, and I thought, let's give this a go. So I started teaching for other people, and then was offered kind of a partnership in part of a studio, and at Double Bay at the time. And I was like, you know what, I could do this closer to home, and do it myself. So I started my studio in 1990, and it was a whole different world back then. No social media. All the advertising was in the local papers or pamphlet drops or people you knew. But it's been a wonderful journey. I ran the business with my ex-husband, kind of downsized before I had my daughter. And it's been an evolution ever since that as well. Raising my daughter kind of in the studio. And then starting my boys program from, the ground up, and realizing how the dance industry, and I needed to begin advocating for boys in dance. So that's kind of where I realized that there was a massive, massive hole in the market for really providing good quality dance education and caring dance education for boys. Yeah. And so now I'm way more into breaking and hip hop than I am into ballet. I don't actually even offer ballet at my
Quite a
studio.
transition, isn't it?
It is, and yet if you know breaking and you know hip hop, and you know that I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that people think they're chalk and cheese, but in actual fact, there is such an ingrained technique with ballet that is aids in the execution of fairly flawless technique. But it's also the same in breaking, where you've got to have that strength and the ability and the flexibility to be able to do and the perseverance and determination to get some of the bigger power moves that the breakers get. So yeah, I'm very much more comfortable in that side of things now.
After 31 years running a studio and being in the dance space, what actually really keeps you motivated? Like, obviously, especially during this time, how do you keep positively pursuing and growing your business?
It's the kids. I
Yeah.
love them. I just love them. And, I love their creativity. I love their ability to connect to music. And really, it's saved me as a person from so many instances. And it's not placing responsibility on kids to keep me happy, but it is. I love dance. I absolutely love it. I will never experience a time in my life where I'm not doing it. Even if I'm confined to a wheelchair, I'll do this.
Yeah.
That's me as the 90-year-old woman in the nursing home. I'll just be like this, bopping along. But that's it.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's really my love of providing an opportunity for kids and really helping them to come into their own as little creative beings. And also dance, just dance itself. I absolutely love.
Yeah. Especially during these times, you really do have to tap into your why. Obviously, with COVID, it's affected the dance industry quite heavily, and any service-based business, really. What have you done to sort of innovate and keep going during, this whole COVID-19 period?
That's a really good question, actually. And it all comes back to connection. So at its core, what I'm doing with my students on Zoom is really drilling down to the connection, and how can I connect with them differently to being in the studio face to face and having their full energy, like
Yeah.
Zoom, there's pets, there's literally pets jumping on kids while they're doing their class, running around. I think the connection, keeping them connected and them connected to each other, connected to their enjoyment of dance, and also keeping it fun and lighthearted. So that's a learning along the way, that the connection and also the fun is, especially because the majority of classes I have in lockdown on Zoom are boys.
Yeah.
So it's having that, the ability to connect with them so they stay engaged, and they also have fun and they connect with each other.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've boiled it down to.
And I think it's really interesting because like you've basically said that you've adapted your classes to an online platform. And I think that is where people are going wrong in the studio space, not adapting to a different platform. So you can't run the same class you did in person online. And if you attempt that, it just doesn't work. And I think, I've experienced that through my own programming and classes that I provide online. We've actually had quite reasonably good retention. I mean, last lockdown was 40% retention, which was not that great, but this lockdown's been 70%, and we've learned so much. And just from what you've said, it's so true. It's about having fun, it's about connection, and it's about just delivering it differently.
Yeah. And I think the adapting, if we really have an essence of us as creative beings, as studio owners and dance teachers and teachers in the performing arts, if we tap into that little pool, that little resource of, okay, well, that's not working, let's try something new, let's pool our resources with other studio owners as well. So I've appreciated the connection with other studio owners and the advice and tips and everything that have been given to me too. So remaining connected with our industry is important, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned earlier about your passion for boys in dance.
Yep.
And you've got what you call the B Street Crew. Tell us about that. What is B Street Crew?
So I'll backtrack just quickly to how I kind of came upon this. I have been teaching specific boys classes for about 14 years. And in that time, the classes have grown, and they've grown because there has been some special stuff that has happened in those classes along the way. And I've been very much listening and talking to the boys about what's made it work, what they enjoy. And I also 7-8 years ago began a degree in counselling and coaching. And as I was studying that degree, I did a lot of crossover stuff. So I was actually applying a lot of those skills to my classes, and realized that there was like stuff that was bubbling around, like, ooh, this is working really well. And then kind of gravitated towards that. And in the meantime, 2016, I started Connect Boys dance events. I felt a responsibility because I taught so many boys. And there were so many boys isolated in their own studios that I thought, okay, let's do an event where we can bring boys together and not just have like a normal kind of dance convention where they have, back-to-back workshops, but to have some social stuff happening, because that's what I was studying, and realizing that building relationships and rapport with people helped connect them. So I started connecting in 2016, and we had
Connect being an event, yes? So an event specific for boys to come together and dance.
Yeah. So it's a day, the way that we put it forward is a day of support, connection, inspiration, and fun, building new friends. So I wanted boys to come together to be with each other for a day, and we did workshops, performances, icebreaker activities. And those boys that have been attending, we didn't get to do one last year, but the boys have been attending Oh, we did it. We did it just before lockdown, the weekend before lockdown this year. And it's still, you know, there are boys attending that attended the first ones, and they're mates, and they support each other, because when you've got, you know, when you normalize boys dancing and they're together, then those that go away and they're still being relentlessly bullied, boys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people don't believe me when I say that. They are still being relentlessly bullied because they dance. And so when they come together and see that dance is normal in the environment at Connect, then that's when they go back and they've built up this kind of strength and this resilience to go back and go, yeah, it's normal, you know, say what you want, but I'm going to keep dancing. So, and keeping it lighthearted and keeping it socially focused. So anyway, but I was doing that and I was like, this is great, but it still wasn't helping to get more boys in studios. So then I decided, and was, you know, by our mutual friend Jane Gretsch, she would message me going, what do I do in my boys' classes? I'm like, okay, I'll just film a video of you, of my boys doing this, and you could teach her that. So we sort of, and I'd been saying to her, I'm going to put a boys program together, and I've been saying it to a lot of people. You know, I did a talk at VDF a few years ago and talking about boys dance, and I was like, no, I've got to do this. So that's how it began. Also, the push was, I've got a daughter. So I've got one child, and she has played soccer since she was 4. Tiny little thing in those massive soccer jerseys. And she's been playing, and still was playing this year until lockdown. And when she was, I think, about 12, I was standing as a soccer mom, as they say, on the side of the field, and I was like, there are like 6 fields around here, all with girls playing soccer, all normal. Nobody's standing at the sideline going, oh, look at those girls playing soccer, and making, you know, judgments and stereotypes about them. They were just supporting them, watching them playing soccer. And I thought, this is wrong. It's wrong that girls are playing soccer and AFL and cricket, and that there aren't more boys in dance studios. And it was like, why? And I had to actually ask myself, why is this happening? Why aren't boys flocking to dance studios? Like, what's going on? So I came up with some answers, having talked to people. There's teachers. They think that to teach boys, you need a male dance teacher. So it's finding consistently good teachers. They didn't know what to teach boys. They were concerned about all the energy that boys have. They weren't sure that the environment was right for them, you know, to come into the environment, whether they'd feel comfortable. So teaching choreography and costumes, et cetera, et cetera. So then I was like, okay, all right, it's time. Let's do it. Let's put it together. And so last year I launched it during lockdown.
Yes, very brave.
Yes.
Congratulations,
yeah, thank you. It was like an overdue baby. It needed to come out and it needed to happen. Yeah.
I love that, an overdue baby.
Yes.
Oh God. I think the pandemic definitely brought forth many overdue babies.
Isn't it right? Isn't that right?
Yeah.
I think also because it's sort of, it was, I mean, this had been coming for years, and because the last lockdown, I had terrible internet connection and I couldn't actually do Zoom lessons. I had to do all pre-recorded material. So that was exhausting as well, but did it, but then actually really sat down and did this. And one of the things with B Street Crew, I will read you what it is because it expresses it very succinctly. It's an innovative new street dance program designed to ignite engagement, connection, and inspiration, and support studios in growing their boys' dance programs. B Street Crew has a unique approach, a physical and social focus, with the intention to engage boys, promote consistency, nurture community, and build retention. So that is what B Street Crew is. It's a program delivered on Thinkific, the learning platform, and it's for studio owners to purchase, but they're teachers. And the wonderful thing is it can be taught by anyone.
Yeah, so
I tell people,
be a dude to teach dudes.
No. And I try and let people know that we don't, as parents, we don't go to the school and say, oh, I want that female teacher to teach my daughter because she needs a good female role model. Same as boys don't go to the school and say, I want that male teacher to teach my son because he needs a good male role model. We need passionate, committed, curious teachers to engage that love of learning in our children. So that's why I say to people, if you've got good teachers, they can teach this program. I'm 53 and I teach breaking. And like people like have a little scoff at that. I do. I teach
Love that.
this content. I've developed some great assistant teachers over the years, and they do a lot of the physical stuff that I can't do. But the wonderful thing is what I've done with B Street Crew is, even if the teachers can't do some of the moves, we've got videos in the content, so you can just show your students, here, try this. And that's the way they do it. And I think that the most important part with the B Street Crew program, part of it is you get a studio audit, which looks at your studio environment and your marketing and things that people possibly don't think about, because studios have been so female orientated over the years that they don't realize that in their marketing they've got all girls. And
Yes,
they
actually, I try to be mindful of that, I must admit.
yeah.
But even I know my nephews, when they were young, they were dancing and they were the only boys in the class. And then they actually left. All of my nephews, all of them, all three nephews ended up leaving, and they were all at different studios. And it was because they were like, oh, Mum, I'm the only boy in the class. Like, I just don't want to do it anymore, And one of them actually went into high school and just felt like that they'd be teased and they didn't want to deal with that. So they just gave it up,
Yeah. And that's, I think, why part of the importance of this is the social approach that is kind of the backbone of the program. I have gorgeous senior boys. I call them my senior boys. They range from year 5 through to year 12. And most of the boys that I teach have been with me for 5 to 10 years. They're the ones that come through, and they're in high school, or well, the ones who are in year 7, they're in high school, and their dance class provides them with a safe space that they can be themselves. And they've told me this. I haven't said, oh, this is your safe space. I ask them, I say, why do you stay? And they open up about how they can be themselves. They've got a great social group. There's other boys. So this is why, and this is part of the learning for me, was that it was more than just the moves. It's all about the social environment. At the moment, for boys, as you said, they need to feel like they're part of a community. They're a part of an environment that is for them, not just a boy going to a studio that has girls, but there are a studio for boys and girls. And this is where we really need to kind of get past. And the 4 core components that I have, which are engage, challenge, inspire, and connect, they are the 4 core components that are the sort of the secret sauce that are the backbone and drive the whole program.
Why do you think people are so uncomfortable with boys dancing? Like, what really is it? Do you think it's about, it means that they're challenging their sexuality, or what exactly is it, do you think?
It's what I call, I've termed it residual stigma. So you often find that, even if parents are happy for their sons to go to a dance class, and this is earlier on, because oftentimes when they're the preschoolers, the parents will just go, dance is going to be good for you. Or if once the boys are older, they get to choose for themselves before they've been introduced to all that stigma. But it's oftentimes, I find that it is like the random uncle or the work colleague who said, oh, your son dances. And then all of a sudden there's this residual stigma that's kind of sparked. We're getting way beyond it, I know now, but it's still hanging around, this thought of like, oh, should he? And the way that it's alleviated is that there are more boys in studios, that it is normalized, and that there is, even if there is one class that is strong and that parents see at the end of year show and they go, oh my God, I love boys dancing. whatever it is, whatever genre they're actually doing, it's really, really important that we have, we really we squash that residual stigma and turn around and say, to the random uncle who goes, oh, it should be playing rugby, because they're still out there, those people.
Oh,
You're like,
100%.
yeah, but you're like, really, people challenging that. And the more we challenge that, saying, okay, you're at, 1970 called and want your attitude back, because they're really, and that's the
They
thing.
are
It's
outdated views. They're outdated.
totally,
Yeah.
totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. You mentioned before about your is it annual event, Connect?
Yes.
Annual. Has that continued during COVID? Did you bring that virtual or is
No.
that just okay? What was the
No.
decision behind not bringing that to a virtual festival?
It was actually the boys themselves. So we had a Melbourne event in March of 2019. So we went to Melbourne. Melbourne loved us. It was so great. They embraced Connect with open arms, and I absolutely love the Melbourne dance community. But it was decided that I think part of the not having it in 2020 was me asking the community, what do you feel? And the thing is that the venue said, no, you can't do it. So that was us being kind of shut down from the venue onwards. Then it was, we rescheduled it. And even then, the restrictions kind of squashed us. And we have it in June, usually at the end of June or mid to end of June, and we had rescheduled to August, and it just there's there's competitions and there's other things that happen in the other parts of the year, for boys to be able to attend, and they said, no, we're happy to leave it till next year. So that's what we did.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think that virtual programs in your space, like in the dance class space and that sort of genre, are sustainable long term? Do you think that people want to continue online and are willing to?
That's a really interesting question, and that's something I've been thinking about, programs moving forward, remaining online with some, and then it's really, it's this space of like, ooh, I actually think for my dance classes, that definitely better in person. But I have to say that, you would have experienced this, and all studio owners would have experienced this. Parents who are basically saying, no, we don't want any more screens, so we're not doing classes until we're back face to face, even though you think, well, there's a lot more to a dance class than a screen. However, respected their values and their thoughts on that. But at the same time, I've discovered that there are children who are thriving in our Zoom classes, and the more the more I've got to know what they enjoy and how they're progressing and what they're really engaging with online, if we have to keep doing it for a little while, I know that the kids that I do have are going to keep thriving. However, there is the there is the component of kids who you're like, they're off, they're gone. You're like, where did they go? And it's not internet connection. They're just, they're kids who've just reached their like, we can't do it anymore, and they go.
Totally.
So I think I love the idea of having some different programs online and offering them to people who may even thinking about people's mental health. I teach adults as well, adult hip hop, and people who can't get to a class or who are experiencing some anxiety around actually being back with people, or vaccines, or hesitancy in just coming back out. I think a soft approach in kind of getting back could also be an answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's going to definitely be more of a hybrid model moving forward for all types of studios, and even any type of service-based business. I think people have really looked at it differently and have discovered new ways of doing business. So I think that they may be a flow on from that for sure.
Yeah.
What would you say to anyone that was wanting to enter the dance space? Like if they were a dance teacher or a dance enthusiast that said, I'm going to open a studio, I'm going to start running programs, What advice would you give them?
Or I definitely encourage them to work out their why.
Yeah.
To say you need to do the work beforehand. Now, I mean, me being the 20-year-old, like, yeah, let's start a dance studio in 1990, going, woohoo, let's do it. But then going, whoa, as a business owner now, there is so much more to it. And I think it's do your work, do your homework, do your courses that are available in business, work out your why, um, do it in a manner that is ethical and considerate of other business owners around you, and keep in touch with other business owners. Have a group, whether it's a network or a group of people that you stay attached to and in touch with, that either mentor you or lift you up or support you. And if you're really, if your why is that you want to educate kids or adults in dance and in the performing arts, then be prepared to be prepared to have a few sleepless nights and a few struggles, and hang in there.
Yeah.
If you're really in it for the long haul, then hang in there, because it's so rewarding.
You mentioned being ethical as well with other studio owners. I find that really interesting because there sort of is like an unwritten rule of book, a code of conduct as such, but it's unwritten, but it's known. I mean, what are some of those rules, do you think, that is just like the do's and don'ts as a studio owner when it comes to being ethical?
Yeah, I think because originally I was one, I think, of two studios in my area 31 years ago. And we were running, quite a way apart, and we were fine. We were just doing our thing. And the other studio was attached to the local club. There was a RSL club, and so they were sort of doing their thing with their dance and gymnastics and all sorts of things, and I came along and started Dance Action, and it was like, cool, we're doing our thing. And then all of a sudden, at one point there was a studio, because I've been hiring a hall for the last 31 years, a church hall that is like my home, and they were hiring it out to another studio who had obviously asked. I wasn't doing it sort of 6 days a week at that point, and it was like, oh. And so this studio was actually doing classes in the same hall, and I shouldn't have been shocked, but I was, because I didn't get any consultation from the church at the time. It was like, oh, there's another studio. And so they used to leave the studio filthy. There was handprints on my mirrors and stuff, and rubbish left around. And even though it was sort of gently requested that they, lift their game, they ended up moving into their own space, and, very close by, took a lot of students. And I kind of saw it later as a bit of a gift, because it helped me hone in on what I could provide as a studio in comparison. And, had a little bit of the comparisonitis for, a little while, but then went, oh, this is great as a business owner. So, I mean, part of that is, not setting up the studio down the road, but people do that. And I think, when it happens to you, if it happened to the person who set up this, they would be up in arms, So I think, because I'm an older dance studio owner, an older dancer, the ethics are upheld more so than perhaps people who are just like, oh, well, that studio, I could get that studio space, or I could rent that, and, nobody said you can't, so I'm doing it. And that, I think we need to be considerate of each other, and considerate of being, communicating with each other, and having a unity rather than that separate kind of, you're there.
And it's a very different world, isn't it? I mean, from 31 years ago, I imagine that the competition has changed, because there'd be like you said, you had your studio and someone a few suburbs down, whereas now there's like one on every corner,
Yes. Yes. And that has been, they've popped up. They've all popped up in their own
Yeah.
little ways, and some have popped up and folded, and some have popped up and then moved. And, there's sort of been this, and, I've had students who've started their own studios, and bless them, they've started them, a little further away. But at the same time, I think if we're really out to help our industry survive and evolve, then we need to be mindful of that, because otherwise there's this competitiveness that I absolutely hate through competitions. I stopped doing competitions a while ago, but then started doing them again because the kids wanted to. But the competitiveness in dance is really has been, and you see it in the US and on that terrible dance program, Dance Moms, and
Yeah.
just the how that has been elevated to be, the picture of what dance is, and it's not. It's about nurturing, our students' love of dance and the performing arts, and being great role models, business role models, artistic role models. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, before we go, I have a couple of questions which I like to ask everyone.
Yep.
Firstly, who inspires you?
Oh, it's changed so much. Oh, goodness me. It's a hard one to say, because um, I I tend to take a lot of my inspiration now, as an older person, from the latest book I read.
Yeah.
So I am very much inspired by my daughter. She's just recently had some difficult diagnosis of health diagnoses, and her determination and perseverance. She's 24,
Mm.
and her perseverance and determination to find ways to manage her new diagnosis has been nothing short of inspirational. Um, and I continue to be inspired by her. But as professional and personal, it really is what I gravitate towards as far as the next audio book I listen to or book I read, in regards to our brains, in regards to our habits, in regards to mental health, the way humans work. That's what drives me. So I'm inspired by that. I think that's weird. I'm inspired by the ocean too, but
No, that's not weird at all. That's beautiful. And obviously, nature has some healing aspects for many. So I
yeah,
totally get that.
yeah.
You mentioned it can be about the book you're reading as well. What are you reading at the moment?
Oh gosh, I've been listening to Thrivers, which is talking about, talking about how children thrive. Because I'm aware that when we get back face to face, that there are going to be some mental health, challenges, because my boys, boys' classes attract boys that are sometimes absolutely love music and engage with music so much, but have attention challenges. So I'm aware that trying to understand children and what engages them, what helps them thrive, that's a great book. And also the one that I've just started is The Source, which is awesome, talking about our brains and how to connect with the source and higher thinking stuff, creativity. Yeah, not all the way through that. So yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
So what's next? What's next for Tanya?
Ooh, oh, well, it was going to be Victorian Dance Festival and having a little table at the Teachers' Day at Victorian Dance Festival, telling everybody about how fabulous B Street Crew is. So it's like every week there's something more. There's something more that you go, okay, cross that one off the list. Let's go. So what is next for me is to renew my marketing efforts pivot with my marketing efforts for B Street Crew, so that more people get in front of it and can hear it and learn about it and be as passionate about normalizing boys dance as I am. And rebuilding my studio to a point at which I want to work in it now. And that's a work in progress. And I'm not sure whether it's just a pandemic. There's a word, they've termed a word for pandemic something where you're rethinking life.
Totally.
But I know from my experiences, and I worked stupidly hard prior to, but stupidly hard terms 1 and 2, trying to build my business back up. And I realized it was making me sick. I was not enjoying my my life. I've realized that cutting back, doing classes on Zoom, but also connecting with students and children and physically feeling much happier and much healthier, that my business is going to adapt and to be the way I really want it to be in 2022. So
Yeah, and
that's
it's
what's
important
next.
to recognize, when you are faced with those personal challenges of, what you need to step back from.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always be in accelerator mode, like sometimes you have to go, right, what's working for me and what isn't, and maybe just letting that go.
Yeah, well, I think what part of my mindset has been, because I've been a single parent for such a long time, I've been in survival mode for a really long time. I've had to teach all the classes. I've had to kind of be the person who's done all of the things, not because it's a choice and I'm a control freak, although I am sometimes, but it's been to support myself and my child, to keep a roof over my head. So these are some of the, I can feel that there are a lot of people not only in a situation where they need to build their businesses back up again, or they may not have a roof over their heads, but also to try to find that balance between what I really want to be doing and really not want to be doing with my business in the future, and what I need to do to also, support myself. So
Beautiful.
yes.
I love that. And I have to say before we go, you look like you've been to the hairdresser. What is going on here? You look like you've got full balayage, layers, all the things.
You are so sweet. Let's say about 7, 8, 9 years ago, I was in a really bad financial situation where I was newly divorced and in a, trying to survive basically. So I learned how to color my hair, and I have been coloring my hair like everybody else is like, colors out. And I'm like, no, I do this myself. I take literally 5 minutes to curl it. It's my signature hairdo, and this is what I do. And I'm happy because I could do it myself.
What an amazing skill to have in lockdown, for goodness sakes.
I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for so many of the poor dance teacher, like literally unfinancial dance teacher things that I've learned along the way.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for the lessons I learned in survival mode, but survival mode is not always the best way to be, I've learned. So thank you, Jo. I do try and I don't cut it myself, otherwise it'd be a disaster. But I'm not like the boys. Some of the boys look like they could do literally, full plaits in their hair or pigtails at the moment. When I'm seeing them on Zoom, their hair's all everywhere.
My son's hair is such a botch job. I
love watching the botch jobs. The botch jobs are the best.
All right. Well, thank you so much for today. I've had an absolute blast. If people want to find out more about you or what you do, where can they go?
All right, so bstreetcrew.com is my website, and that will take you through. That will tell you all about B Street Crew and where you can purchase. We're on Instagram and Facebook, although our Instagram needs a bit of help with a few things. But B Street Crew. On Facebook, we've got a page. Dance Action is my dance studio, and we're on social media on Instagram and Facebook at the moment. And also, Connect Boys Dance Event is on Facebook and Instagram. We love supporting boys of all genres on our Facebook and Instagram pages.
Connect will be back in 2022. Yeah,
oh yes.
Beautiful.
Yep, plan back in action and ready to go to other states when they open the board.
Yes. All right, well, thank you so much, Tanya. I've had an absolute blast. You take care.
Thanks so much, Jo. Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed listening and would like to hear more, be sure to click subscribe. If you're really feeling the love, share us with your friends. To work with me or to simply find out more about the magic of creativity, arts, and business, head to my website, josephinelancuba.com, and you can find me on socials. I also have a book that I've co-written with a bunch of amazing entrepreneurial women called The Women Changing the World. And you can grab a copy of that at josephinelancuba.com/books. Thanks for listening.